entertainment tonight
at 10:30.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. A federal grand jury investigation is closing in on Ferdinand Marcos, and President Reagan hinted strongly today that he will not step in to protect his former friend and ally from criminal indictment. The U.S. grand jury has been considering evidence that Marcos and his wife embezzled huge sums of money from the U.S. and Philippine governments and spent it on themselves. CBS News White House correspondent Bill Plant has the latest.
CBS News has been told that the Reagan administration has given former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos an ultimatum: plead guilty to racketeering charges or face immediate criminal indictment. Marcos was given until 5 o'clock Eastern Time today to accept the plea bargain. He let the deadline pass without a response, apparently rejecting the deal. Sources say an indictment could come as early as tomorrow. For months, a New York grand jury has been investigating charges that Marcos and his wife Imelda tried to conceal millions of dollars worth of U.S. real estate and fine art acquired while he was president. Any prosecution of Marcos is a touchy issue for the administration. President Reagan knew Marcos and granted him asylum here in 1986. Secretary of State Schultz and National Security Advisor Powell at first argued against prosecution on the grounds that it could discourage other foreign politicians who might want to step down with U.S. guarantees. Attorney General Richard Thornburg favored prosecution. Normally, the president would have to sign off on any prosecution which touches on U.S. foreign policy. But the Justice Department is largely limiting its charges against Marcos to offenses allegedly committed after he arrived in the U.S., apparently providing the White House with a way out for Mr. Reagan.
It has not yet reached the president for decision, and it may not reach the president for decision.
It would have to be a matter involving foreign policy to bring it to my desk, not just some legal technicality.
Sources say that once Mr. Reagan agreed to this face-saving solution, which didn't require him to be personally involved, he was willing to let the Justice Department go forward. White House and State Department officials would have preferred the plea bargain arrangement, but now all are agreed on seeking an indictment of Marcos. It is expected to be handed down in New York tomorrow. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
Federal agents today announced they've broken up a steroid smuggling ring centered in the Denver area. Officials called it the biggest bust yet in what's estimated to be a $100 million steroid black market. Doctors say steroids can cause serious physical damage, and these steroids may have been particularly dangerous. Correspondent Rita Braver explains why.
High school athletes in Colorado may have been customers of a steroid smuggling operation cracked by U.S. Customs. Agents seized thousands of dollars worth of the drugs and arrested 7 people today, including alleged ringleader Stephen Lower of Arvada, Colorado. Lower allegedly peddled the drugs through his tanning salon and his part-time job as a high school coach.
Mr. Lower, who is a high school, or is or was a high school gymnasium teacher, may very well have passed on to students some of these steroids.
While a hidden camera taped the transaction, Lower allegedly sold steroids to an undercover agent posing as a customer. Steroids are banned in the U.S. because they can cause a myriad of physical ills, including destruction of the heart, liver, and central nervous system. And officials say the drugs that Lower and his cohorts distributed using these fancy cars may have been even worse. Steroids designed for use in animals.
These steroids were manufactured in Mexico, as I said, under unregistered or uninspected conditions, and were unfit for human consumption.
What concerns law enforcement and sports officials is that all over the country, young people are saying what we heard in this New York gym today.
And as the competition, grows and gets larger, you know that the more people who are playing, the less of the chance that you have. You figure that steroids would give you the edge.
And despite the humiliation of Ben Johnson and the tales of physical destruction from many athletes, sports professionals say that in recent weeks, there seems to be more rather than less of a demand for steroids. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
The Federal Aviation Administration today ordered the nation's airlines to begin an immediate inspection of takeoff warning alarm systems on almost 1,800 Boeing-built jetliners. Reason? Some of the alarms don't work. And as CBS News correspondent Susan Spencer reports, in 2 cases, faulty alarms may have led to deaths and injuries to the flying public.
A failure of the takeoff warning system is a prime suspect in August's tragic Delta crash in Dallas and led to today's FAA order for inspections of warning systems on all 727 and 737 aircraft.
3% sounds like a small number, but it's very significant. From a pilot's perspective, you certainly wouldn't want to be in one of those 3% airplanes.
The takeoff warning system alerts the crew in no uncertain terms if there is anything amiss before takeoff.
If we get ready to take off and the flaps are not in the correct position, and I push these throttles up, anything more than taxi power, we're going to take off warning.
The failure of the warning system was found directly responsible for the tragic Northwest DC-9 crash in Detroit in 1987. After the Delta 727 crash and reports of other 727 problems, the FAA checked over 1,000 of those planes, and it found 35 with faulty or inoperative warning systems, most from the major airlines, 17 from Continental, 8 from Eastern, 4 from Delta.
And if we assume that each airplane makes 5 takeoffs per day, 365 days of the year, that's close to 63,000 takeoffs. That's pretty significant.
Today's order requires both immediate tests of these warning systems and then routine checks after every 200 hours of flight. The FAA says that's roughly twice as often as most airlines check today. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Washington.
And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, David Dow on the painfully slow progress towards saving those trapped whales. And James Hattori on the painful slowdown in the West Texas oil fields. Also, you'll never guess what's for sale. It's not going for a song.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Introducing the next Eagle Summit, a small front-wheel drive car that feels big, thanks to a surprisingly supple suspension and amazing interior room. But when you add Summit's optional 16-valve dual overhead cam engine, it gets small again.
If you used to take capsules, the makers of Tylenol have just come up with something better. New extra-strength Tylenol gel caps. They're gelatin-coated, and compared to capsules, gel caps are 33% smaller, with all that extra-strength pain relief concentrated into a solid center under a smooth gelatin coating. So gel caps are actually easier to swallow. If you used to take capsules, try new extra-strength Tylenol gel caps. It's not a capsule, it's better.
I've got big news for prune lovers who also love cereal. Actually, it's kind of small news when you look at it. It's Sunsweet bite-sized pitted prunes. Try them on your cereal, and you'll agree Sunsweet bite-size is just the right size.
Hemorrhoids, they hurt, burn, and swell. Over the years, more doctors have recommended Anusol than Preparation H to relieve the hurting. Anusol is the word to remember for relief.
Some strategy adjustments today with the presidential candidates and their handlers. For Vice President George Bush, it wasn't only what he said, it was where he said it. Bush made his latest attacks on Mike Dukakis today during a quickly arranged campaign stop here in New York, a need-to-win state for Dukakis in Dukakis' own home base of the Northeast. For his part, Governor Dukakis was working the Northeast too today and comparing what he sees as Bush's negative campaign attacks and tactics to those of the Nixon White House. Bob Schieffer, traveling with the Bush campaign in New York, begins our coverage.
Bush's first foray into New York was to the kind of heavily Catholic area where his law and order message seems to play best. At a parochial school in what was once Geraldine Ferraro's congressional district in the New York City borough of Queens, he picked up the endorsement of New York's largest police union. It came at a huge rally where the biggest cheers came for speakers who called for restoring New York's death penalty.
I believe I share the views of most New Yorkers in stating that these murderers must be given the death penalty.
Bush often cites the need to inflict the death penalty for cop killers, but arriving here just 48 hours after 2 New York policemen were killed, and after being given the badge of another policeman slain in the line of duty, he used his toughest language yet.
Some people need to be taken off the streets, and kept off the streets. And when a police officer is murdered, the killer should pay with his life.
Bush's tough language coincides with the release of commercials by a pro-Bush group featuring victims of Willie Horton, the Massachusetts prisoner who attacked a Maryland couple while on furlough from prison.
Horton broke into our home. For 12 hours, I was beaten, slashed, and terrorized. My wife, Angie, was brutally raped. When his liberal experiment failed, Dukakis simply looked away. He also vetoed the death penalty bill.
Dukakis has taken the line that Bush's tough talk and his repeated references to Willie Horton are nothing more than an attempt to exploit human tragedy for political purposes. But there's no sign that Bush will let up. To the contrary, his people say polling shows it to be their most effective issue, and they expect Bush to keep pounding away at it right up until Election Day. Dan?
Bob, thanks. Before coming to New York today, Mike Dukakis campaigned in Connecticut and kept up his more aggressive talk back to George Bush's attacks. This time, Dukakis hit back at Bush's repeated attempts to picture him as soft on crime.
Above all, the truth should matter a lot in a presidential campaign. Because, as we learned in Watergate, it matters a lot in the Oval Office. Truth was the first casualty in the Nixon White House, and it has been the first casualty in the Bush campaign.
George Bush has campaigned frequently, including today, as the candidate who won't cut defense, while repeatedly casting Dukakis as the candidate who will. CBS News Defense Department correspondent David Martin tonight looks beyond the rhetoric to some of the military spending options Bush's own defense policy advisors actually have in mind.
The vice president continues to lambaste Dukakis as weak on defense. But Bush and his advisors recognize the Pentagon budget squeeze would force Bush as president to cancel or delay a number of weapons.
There may have to be cuts and there may have to be programs that you stretch out. That may well be the case, that you have to do that.
The Pentagon is currently planning on a budget that grows 2% a year, but Bush's advisors are preparing for less.
If the Congress and the executive ultimately come up with defense budgets that are less than 2% growth, then I think additional reductions will have to be taken against defense programs.
Here are some cuts being considered by Bush advisors. Cancel the Pentagon plan to put MX missiles on rail cars. Build only the Midget Man missile, which would move about by truck. Publicly, Bush has not given any hint of which missile he favors and has criticized Dukakis for being against both.
And he wants to do away with the Midget Man and the MX, the modernization of our nuclear capability. That is not the way you deal with the Soviets.
Abandon the goal of building 15 carrier battle groups. Settle for a smaller force of 13 carriers. Publicly, Bush has criticized Dukakis for being against a 15-carrier Navy.
He is the man on conventional forces that wants to eliminate 2 carrier battle groups.
Cut back strategic bomber programs. With the B-1 just entering service and the B-2 or Stealth ready for its first flight, bombers would eat up a disproportionate share of the budget. One option, delay production of Stealth. These are only options, and all Bush's advisors do not necessarily agree on them. But the candidate himself is aware that cuts or delays in defense are necessary.
I think he is among the first to acknowledge it.
If these options turn into decisions, there would be very little daylight left between George Bush and Michael Dukakis on defense. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Another election year sign of the times. Today, the first nail was hammered into the inaugural platform, the site on the west front of the Capitol, where the next president and vice president of the United States will be given their oaths of office on January 20th.
It's the statement you make as you travel through life, distinctive, decidedly you. The great American road belongs to Buick. It's the fast lane of life, the road to the top, the road that Buick commands. The great American road belongs to Buick. Substantial and sure, with power and grace, a spirit as free as your own. Yeah, it's the freedom to climb.
my day.
Yes, sir. I've got a Tuesday test.
Make myself at
Yes, sir.
ease.
Thank you.
Nothing's like being invisible, and nothing's better for seeing the forest for the trees than the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House, only Maxwell House. That's the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House and me.
Final congressional approval today for an election year aid package for the nation's homeless. The $1.3 billion program passed by the Senate and now sent to President Reagan is supposed to provide food, shelter, medical help, and job training for homeless Americans. Mr. Reagan is expected to sign this bill. Biologists helping in the effort to rescue those whales trapped in the Arctic ice have named them Bonnet, Crossbeak, and Bone. They are hoping they'll soon be able to call all three of the creatures lucky. As David Dow reports from Barrow, Alaska, that depends largely on the weather and human ingenuity.
Scientists today flew out to inspect the latest weapon in the battle to save 3 trapped California gray whales. It is de-icing equipment sent here by a Minnesota manufacturer who had been following the Arctic saga on television. With the de-icer stirring the freezing water, the job of keeping open the whales' 2 major breathing holes became easier, and the whales seem to like it.
We have in mind to do an experiment today to see if we can draw the whales to a new hole using the de-icer as a sound.
Meanwhile, authorities considered shifting tactics today in an effort to speed up the rescue process. They may bring in an aerial masher, a helicopter swinging a huge concrete block, to begin breaking up the ice around the whales while awaiting the primary rescue vehicle. That is a $3 million hover barge that's supposed to carve a 5-mile escape channel for the whales to the open ocean. But it's been slow going for the helicopter that's trying to tow it here. In 2 days, the procession covered just 5 of the 200 miles from Prudhoe Bay to Point Barrow. Officials insist the first miles are the hardest, but scientists are eager to move fast, while winds are keeping the waters open out beyond the ice sheet.
I'm not trying to say there's a perilous situation. I just want to take advantage of the best conditions that we're probably going to have this week, and so I want to do something more than just maintain the holes.
The rescue team is also considering some other ideas, but the whale's size limits their possibilities. The largest whale is about 35 feet long and weighs perhaps 16 tons, or more than 10 family cars. The team is reluctant to try sedating the whales and hauling them to open water for fear they would drown or freeze in the process. The air temperature gets down to 20 below zero. Still, officials remain somewhat optimistic about their chances.
I'm still optimistic, and I'm over the 50% mark.
Late today, scientists said that if anything, the whales appear to be doing better, though how long they can remain captives of their environment remains a mystery. David Dow, CBS News, Barrow, Alaska.
A draft report from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is the latest to warn about big changes possible for planet Earth because of the so-called greenhouse effect, the buildup of carbon dioxide and other fuel-burning byproducts high in the sky. The EPA's own long-range estimate of the possible greenhouse effect on the U.S. indicates that the next century could bring raised ocean levels, a lowering of the Great Lakes, reduced crops in the south, and the turning of some northern forest land into grassland. 2 Soviet cosmonauts took a walk on the wild side today, a 4.5-hour spacewalk, to do what they failed to do earlier this year, replace a component on a space telescope that melted from exposure to cosmic radiation. This time, the cosmonauts had new tools and new flexible spacesuits to make the fix. Heavy rains from Hurricane Joan pounded Costa Rica today, and 25,000 people were evacuated inland. 7,000 more fled the coast of Nicaragua as the storm thrashed around in the Caribbean. The big hurricane's top winds are 110 miles an hour. Its course still uncertain.
Remember this little number. It's just 150 calories, no fat, and it tastes fabulous. Plus, this little number is going to help me get into this little number.
Yoplait 150, now in vanilla and mixed berry.
Up to $1,000 cash back on a Subaru is worth more because Subaru has the best-selling import wagon in America.
Because the Subaru Justy is the lowest-priced four-wheel drive passenger car in America.
Up to $1,000 cash back from Subaru means a great deal on a great car.
Garrity, that's shredded wheat, not a TV dinner.
Well, that's how we do it in Nome.
Nome? I didn't know you were from Alaska.
Not Nome, Alaska, Nome, Texas.
I never saw anyone eat shredded wheat hot before. Oh, sure. My mom used to pour hot milk on it.
Try Nabisco shredded wheat in your microwave. In just a minute or two, you can have a delicious hot breakfast with no added sugar or salt.
If they microwave it in Texas, what do they do in California?
They can it.
No.
I have just the thing for that cold.
Most kids think that medicine has to taste bad. But there's one cold medicine that relieves both kids and colds. Dimetap, grape-flavored Dimetap elixir, recommended millions of times by pediatricians and pharmacists. After all, a cold medicine can't work if you can't get it down.
You like Dimetap?
Grape-flavored Dimetap elixir. It relieves kids as well as colds.
On the oil market today, the price of West Texas crude closed down 80 cents to $14.60 a barrel. Those figures may not seem to mean much to many of us, but James Hattori explains what too many days like today mean these days in Texas.
Witness the end of an oil well in West Texas, the painful dismantling of an industry already wounded by low oil prices. Contractors called pluggers shut down 13,000 wells in Texas last year, 10,000 more so far this year. Most are stripper wells, producing less than 10 barrels a day, no longer economical to operate. Workers use concrete to plug the shafts and the flow of red ink.
This well is gone. Yeah, it will be gone after we get this procedure here done.
It's a sign of the times in West Texas. New drilling permits are down, but for the undertakers of the oil patch, business is brisk.
The pluggers will probably be the last people here as far as plugging and banning wells. We're not sure who's going to pay us, but we'll be here.
Major oil companies with their profitable refineries are better able to cope with falling oil prices. But for small independent producers, as the price of West Texas Intermediate crude falls, so do their hopes for economic survival.
9, 10. Thank you so much.
At Midland's Spot Restaurant, veteran oilmen who clinched deals over breakfast during the boom years now lament over the future.
To me, anything below $15 a barrel, we're bordering on losing money in most cases.
You know, it's a matter of confidence in the investing community. They are not coming to us to invest their money.
I think it's just absolutely ruining the independent oil man.
Parts of Texas have rebounded through diversification, but oil still fuels much of the Texas economy, providing 1 in 10 jobs. And for those whose livelihoods are directly linked to oil, the effects linger.
I tell my banker used to, when I come in, he holler, yeah, come on over here. And now he holler, no, 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 get away from here.
Sure, it's painful, and sure, it's no fun. But for those that do survive, I think there's a great future.
For now, as Mideast countries pump up the oil supply, the West Texas oil patch dwindles. James Hattori, CBS News, Odessa.
RJR Nabisco today announced some of its top officials may attempt to buy the tobacco and food giant for almost $17 billion. That would be the biggest corporate acquisition ever. Earlier this week, Philip Morris offered to buy Kraft, the processed foods manufacturer, for $11 billion.
A few words from Dave Brubeck on the Oldsmobile 98 Regency. And what does the new generation of Brubecks have to say about it? It's a remarkable fusion of traditional elegance and modern performance, and all that jazz.
This is the new generation of Olds.
Did you hear about Murphy? He switched our long distance.
On his own?
He made an executive decision.
I can't believe it.
He's got 10 years in, kids in college.
Didn't he think about his profit sharing, his pension?
Does Foster know? Foster knows.
So, what happened to poor Murphy?
He got promoted.
MCI. Until you call, you'll never know how much better a long-distance company can be. Let us show you.
With low back pain, every step shoots pain. Up here. Know what helps?
Clinically proven Back Guard, a shoe insert.
Watch how it absorbs foot shock to relieve low back pain.
Amazing. Something down here can help up here.
New Back Guard from Dr. Scholl's.
Lunchtime. Good lunch. With fresh baked whole grain breads. Good then. Good now in today's Roman meal. Natural whole grain goodness. Make one meal a day a Roman meal.
Happy Birthday to You is a song most of us have been singing all our lives. It seems likely great-great-great-grandpa sang it. You know what? He didn't. And as Charles Osgood reports, that fact is worth millions of dollars.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
There are few songs in all the world known by so many people as Happy Birthday. It was the very first song many of us ever learned. Most people think it's a folk song, something nobody ever really wrote down or that somebody owns. But somebody did, and somebody does. In 1893, in Louisville, Kentucky, two young women who taught kindergarten and Sunday school classes, Patty Smith Hill and her sister Mildred, published a little book of children's songs. And one of them went like this. Good morning to you, good morning to you, good morning, dear children, good morning to all. Didn't even rhyme.
Patty seemed to develop the philosophies of modern education, kindergarten education, and she believed in creative play for children, and she used this as a means of starting the day. Good morning to you, good morning to you.
Later, the ladies added a lyric for birthdays, leaving a space for the name of the person whose birthday it was. And to say that it caught on over the years is putting it mildly.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
It was not until the 1930s, when the song was being used left and right without royalties being paid, that the Hill family went to court and established that Happy Birthday was their property. The Hill sisters are dead now, but their little song is still in copyright. The owners for the last 50 years being Birch Tree Limited, a publishing company owned by the Sengstack family of Princeton, New Jersey. If you want to use Happy Birthday commercially, you have to pay.
Well, under the law, it's the obligation of anyone who uses this piece of property to get the permission of the owner, just as you wouldn't use someone's car without their permission.
The Sengstacks say they are now ready to sell their catalog, including Happy Birthday. That song earns an estimated $1 million a year in royalties today, and the copyright doesn't run out until the year 2010. So the song is worth millions and millions, not including sentimental value. One selling point, you don't have to teach Happy Birthday to anybody. Everybody already knows it. I mean, everybody. Charles Osgood, CBS News, New York.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. We hope you'll stay tuned for 48 hours tonight on the abortion battle. That'll be at 8, 7 Central Time. See you then.
Happy birthday to Roy. Happy birthday to you.
Abortion battle. One side crying murder, the other crying freedom, and tough choices for those caught in